Hello everyone, welcome to the infamous Wall of Shame, where journalists and sometimes deans of journalism's reputations go to die and are forced to print corrections and retractions in articles questioning our ethics. Today's Retracto goes to the San Francisco Chronicle, who published this article, Undercover Journalism is a Necessity, but the article consisted entirely of arguments criticizing undercover journalism and the First Amendment. The former dean of the journalism school at UC Berkeley, whose name is Edward Wasserman, is a professor of the Graduate School of Journalism at UC Berkeley, is very conflicted, and we'll go through that conflict. He was forced to print a correction after he got it wrong, characterizing the jury verdict against Project Veritas in Washington, D.C., one of the most amazing, epic corrections of all time. I'm going to take you through the article. Cue the Retracto theme song. So in this article in the San Francisco Chronicle, it says, quote, Project Veritas must now pay Democracy Partners $120,000 for the deceit and betrayal that went into the failed sting. First of all, the professor says that the sting, quote, failed. The lawsuit was not over defamation or false light. It wasn't into the credibility of what it is that we showed. The lawsuit against us was over breach of fiduciary duty. Breach of loyalty, the same sort of thing they sued ABC News in 1992 over with the Food Lion case. Let's go to this sentence in the article, failed sting. I'm not sure what the professor means by failed. The Democracy Partners investigation was perhaps the most successful story in the history of Project Veritas. It was also mentioned on CNN, talked about by Anderson Cooper and Van Jones.
Video emerging of a group of pro-Clinton political operatives talking about stirring up trouble and provoking violence at Trump rallies. The video comes from Project Veritas. Some of the things you'll hear on the tape are certainly hard to ignore. Enough we're learning for one person to be fired so far.
It was in the A section of the New York Times. The New York Times actually took a screenshot of Scott Fovel and what he said. So when the professor says that we had a failed sting, I'm not sure what he means by that. The professor also omits what Scott Fovel actually said in this investigation.
It doesn't matter what the frickin' legal and ethics people say. We need to win this mother.
The professor doesn't mention that part. He also doesn't mention all the witnesses in the trial admonished what Scott Fovel said, including the man that fired him, his supervisor at American Unites for Change.
Wherever Trump and Pence are going to be, we have a bench.
Okay.
And we have a whole team across the country that does that. Both consultants and people from the Democratic Party and the Democratic Party apparatus and people from the campaign, the Clinton campaign.
Wasserman doesn't mention Aaron Black, who worked with Bob Creamer, who's actually inside the Democracy Partners headquarters when he said, quote,
nobody's really supposed to know about me. So the Chicago protest, when they shut all that was us. It was more him than me, but none of this is supposed to come back to us because we want it coming from people. We don't want it to come from the party.
They didn't want the people out there in the United States to know that this sort of stuff that was happening was not organic, but set up by people like Aaron Black, who said that he was in Chicago.
So the Chicago protest, when they shut all that was us.
All that reporting that Project Veritas did, Wasserman selectively edits out of his article about the story. Obviously, that's newsworthy information that we have a right to publish, but Wasserman evidently doesn't mention it in his article. Take a look at this sentence. If Project Veritas' target weren't an innocuous Beltway consultancy, but a predatory and secretive multinational with darkly destructive overseas operations that leave its coerced workforce half-starved and virgin forests in ruins. Does he wish that we never even investigated those things? But the former dean of the J School says, no, they're innocuous Beltway consultancy because some things are not allowed to be investigated. See, that's what this is really about. Apparently, it's not about journalism at all. Seems to me it's about power. And then he says in this part of the article that our journalism is a, quote, deceptively edited hatchet job.
Okay.
Can the professor name one actual edit in the piece? Can he actually identify for us where we hatcheted, where we lied about what was said, where we took anybody out of context? We weren't sued for defamation. We weren't sued for false light. Did Wasserman's editor at the San Francisco Chronicle edit this article? It sure looks like he did not. Perhaps one of the most ridiculous things that Wasserman says here is he says, quote, "The implication here is that the court nailed Veritas because it found they aren't really reporters. They're a band of ideologues who engage in something like reporting only so they can tart up the fabrications they were determined to publish with a sprinkling of fact, that they gathered information dishonestly to use in dishonest ways." The things that people said in the video actually were said. Scott Fovel actually said...
No, I'm saying, we have mentally ill people that we pay to do shit. Make no mistake. Over the last 20 years, I've paid off a few homeless guys to do some crazy stuff.
What does the former dean of the UC Berkeley Journalism School want us to do with that material? Does he want us to not publish that? Now, this San Francisco Chronicle article says that undercover journalism is a necessity. But like George Orwell said in Animal Farm, all animals are equal, but some are more equal than others. Perhaps some undercover journalism is more of a necessity than other forms, which doesn't actually make any sense. It's anathema, inconsistent, contrary to any fundamental theory of the First Amendment.
You can't do this. I feel the conflict within you. Let go of your hate.
It is too late for me, son.
Let me go to my favorite book, 1984 by George Orwell, Part 1, Chapter 5. Newspeak is to narrow the range of thought. In the end, we shall make thought crime literally impossible because there will be no words in which to express it. Every concept that can never be needed will be expressed by exactly one word, with its meaning rigidly defined and all its subsidiary meanings rubbed out and forgotten. Quote, "Doublethink means the power of holding two contradictory beliefs in one's mind simultaneously and accepting both of them. Undercover journalism is necessary, but also undercover journalism is not necessary." So I'm trying to understand that, Professor. But of course, we aren't lying to our audience. We're lying to the subject of our investigation. We have to deceive our subjects in order to tell the truth to the people, because if we don't do that, if we're honest with people about the fact that we are journalists, they're going to be dishonest with us. What do you want Project Veritas to do? This is an honest question, it's not rhetorical. Do you want me to not publish the story? Would you have preferred these statements not be published on our YouTube channel? Professor Wasserman, I invite you to confront your shadow. And I invite you to join us. You have a choice to make. To join the fight with Project Veritas. Join us on our appeal against this ridiculous notion that we have a duty of loyalty to the news subjects we investigate, and we're going to the appeals court in DC, and we want you to join us. And the second thing I want you to do is host a panel at UC Berkeley. Talk to me. Let's engage in conversation, a two-way conversation. I'd like to hear what you have to say. And now you've had to post a correction. Quote, "Democracy Partners damages because it operated fraudulently, misrepresented itself by lying about the credentials, and because it engaged in illegal wiretapping by secret recording." Correction. An earlier version of this article misstated what Project Veritas was found liable for. So now, we'll post your correction on the wall of shame. Now we're going to send you an alpaca. I don't lie to my audience, sir. But I do use deception towards our news subjects in order to tell the truth to the audience. And that makes all the difference in the world. So you'll be getting an alpaca in the box. Probably one of the most amazing articles I've ever read. But I do see inside of your soul a conflict. I hope to address that conflict with you. I hope to meet you. I hope to talk to you. I hope to engage in a conversation, because that's what the First Amendment's all about. Let's have a panel at UC Berkeley. We'll set it up. We'll invite all the journalism students, because this is exciting what we're doing. We're going after all these incredible stories. We're doing things that journalists haven't done in 4 decades, and they're going to find it thrilling and exciting, truth-telling, muckraking, because that's what the United States Constitution and the First Amendment and journalism is supposed to do. I hope to hear from you.